The Taking of America 1, 2, 3. Chapter 1. The Overview and the 1976 Election. The taking of America has been both a simple and a very complex process. It has not been the result of a coup d'etat, although some aspects the process resemble a coup. It has not been a process similar to the dictatorship takeovers in Germany, Italy, and other fascist regimes. It has not been a process like the communist uprisings in Russia, Hungary, and other Eastern European countries. The taking of America has been a process unique in the history of the world. The one feature that makes it unique is that what was once the greatest democracy in the world has been taken over by a power control group without the knowledge of most of the American people, their congressional representatives, or the rest of the world. The group has taken America in this fashion because manipulation of the American presidency and the presidential electoral procedure is enough to control America. Two fiendishly clever stratagems were used to keep the fact that control had been seized from being obvious to the people. The first of these was control of the established media in the dissemination of both true blocking and false flooding information. The second was the use of clandestine and secret weapons and techniques developed during World War II and perfected during the Korean and Vietnam Wars. These techniques are so new and unusual as to be unbelievable to most citizens. Thus, the incredibility of such weapons as hypnosis, brainwashing, and programming of patsies as assassins became a psychological tool in the bag of techniques of the power control group. The average American has shrugged off the possibility of the takeover with the belief that that's not possible here. The use of such weapons, coupled with a tremendous campaign through the controlled media that both whitewashes any signs of conspiracies and spreads disinformation throughout the country, has successfully blocked any serious or official attempts to get at the truth. Unofficial investigators, private researchers, and even congressional representatives have been ridiculed and completely blocked by both the power control group and their media allies. To take over a real democracy without letting the people know it has been taken over is a fantastic achievement. A list of the accomplishments of the power control group illustrates the point. Since 1963, the question for 1976 was, could the power control group continue to take over during that year's elections? Would they be successful in blocking efforts to expose the takeover by Congress? Would they be able to fool the American public again, control the media, and eliminate the contenders for the presidency in 1976, who might have threatened their secure position? The answer to these questions was yes. The candidates on the scene during the 1976 primaries fell into three categories according to the control group's point of view. Category 1 include candidates that would continue the cover-up of the takeover. Gerald Ford led this group with Ronald Reagan not far behind him. Henry Jackson was a probable ally because of his backing of the CIA, an important organization in the cover-ups and the takeover. Category 2 include those candidates who would probably try to expose the takeover and the power control group if elected. Morris Udall, Fred Harris, and George Wallace fell into this category. The third category include candidates whose intentions were not clear or unknown at the time. Jimmy Carter, Frank Church, and Hubert Humphrey remained in this group, and Sargent Shriver and Birchby were also in this category before they dropped out of the race. Effort would have been made to eliminate Udall, Harris, or Wallace if any one of them was nominated at the Democratic Convention. Carter must certainly have been put to some kind of loyalty test before being permitted to continue as the Democratic nominee. Reagan and Ford were, no doubt, already safe candidates for the control group because of their demonstrated cover-up performances. Ford had cooperated fully in at least 4 ways. He was on the Warren Commission and played a leading role in the cover-up. He wrote the cover-up book Portrait of the Assassin. He pardoned Nixon and protected the Nixon tapes, and he formed the Rockefeller Commission, appointing David Billin as head of the staff to continue the cover-up of the JFK conspiracy. Reagan had cooperated in at least 3 ways. He protected important witnesses from extradition from California between 1967 and 1969 for testimony before the grand jury in New Orleans, and at the trial of Clay Shaw, he assisted Ethel Younger, then district attorney in Los Angeles and later California State Attorney General, in covering up the assassination conspiracy in the Robert Kennedy case. And he has consistently supported the foreign and domestic clandestine activities of the CIA, FBI, and other intelligence agencies, both nationally and in California. A later chapter will describe just how the Democratic candidate may be eliminated and when. Congressman Henry B. Gonzalez from San Antonio, Texas, who introduced House Resolution 204 to reopen the 2 Kennedy assassination cases, the Dr. King case and the George Wallace shooting, took a public position on the possibility that the 1976 election was controlled. Gonzalez said, "If we find the answer, the truth, to the questions I have raised about the assassinations of JFK, RFK, MLK, and the Wallace attempt, as well as those many others have raised, will the truth make us free? Yes, it will, for the truth will make us free to pursue democracy, our system of government through the ballot box, and we will not be subject to government by bullets. The truth will enable us to prevent such a series of events from happening again." Some of the supporters of the investigation have written to me recently of their hope that the investigation will get underway right away, March 1976, because they are concerned that there is great danger in store for the Democratic nominee for the president, whoever he turns out to be. Chapter 2, the Power Control Group. Just who and what is the Power Control Group? Some have said it's the military-industrial complex. Some prefer to put the blame on the Rockefellers and the Council on Foreign Relations. Others have talked about control shifting from the Yankees to the Cowboys and back again. The term the cabal, first used in an obscure paper by an unknown author in 1968, described a high-level conspiracy group that planted, financed, and carried out the assassination of John F. Kennedy. The word cabal has been used since then by some authors and researchers and applied to all of the major domestic assassinations. The idea of a cabal raises more questions than it answers. Who is in the cabal? What's the same cabal behind the planning and financing of all 5 major eliminations? Or are there several interlocking cabals? What about the Warren and Rockefeller commissions? Were they part of the cabal? Which cabal controls and infiltrated the media and organized the disinformation that poured forth in 1975 and 1976? Was Ford a cabal member? Was Nixon? How about Johnson and Kissinger? Has one cabal command the executions of the 100 witnesses and lower level participants? The mistake made by researchers in postulating higher level groups is that they simplify a very complex situation to draw a distinct line between those involved in an overt conspiracy to assassinate a leader and those involved afterward in covering up the first group's actions is a mistake. The cover-ups are far more important than the original assassinations. Each assassination or attempt assassination or other form of elimination of a leader is only part of a greater whole. The 16 accomplishments of the power control group listed in Chapter 1, plus those now taking place and those scheduled for the future, should be considered as a continuum. The control group membership may contain individuals in various categories, some of whom planned assassinations, some of whom knew about the assassinations, and some of whom did not know about assassinations in advance. Some may have been on the firing line but have had nothing to do with the cover-ups. Some of them are victims of later eliminations. Somewhere in the power control group's hierarchy is a subgroup or perhaps several subgroups that have been responsible for the attempted assassinations of presidential candidates, earlier assassins, witnesses, and earlier middle to higher level members in the power control group. These subgroups might be thought of as intelligence style task forces or mini cabals. There is little question that many of the individuals in these task forces are from organized crime and from the intelligence community or both. They have had access to intelligence techniques and weapons that have frequently been used in the elimination process. A second mistake made by some researchers is to assume that the cabal's shape remains static through time. Evidence shows that the power control group has been a very living organism that both shrinks and grows as a function of time. The shrinkages take place through eliminations and a few natural deaths. The growth takes place for several reasons. It is necessary to use new techniques and new people for the group's activities as time passes in order to continue effective control of the media and to control to fool the people and Congress. It's also necessary to bring high-level people into the group from time to time. Candidates for president acceptable to the group must be sworn in and must agree to continue the cover-ups. New media lackeys or new special committees or commissions are also needed. Once in a while, an individual blackmails his way in. Some come in on a de facto basis. The very nature of the cover-up procedure has made it necessary to expose at least some of the truth to vice presidents and vice presidential candidates. In addition to Presidents Johnson, Nixon, and Ford, each vice president elected or appointed since 1963 has had to know the truth about the cover-ups in the event he became president. Ford was the most important of these since he had to agree to pardon Nixon and to protect the tapes. The heads of FBI, CIA, selected trusted second-level man, and deputy director of plans in the CIA have all had to know some of the truth. The members of the 40 group and their successors, who presumably know all intelligence secrets of the country, are no doubt brought into this inner circle of knowledgeable people. The Warren commissioners were split. Rowan, Dulles, McCloy, and Ford all knew the truth? Cooper Box and Russell did not. The Rockefeller Commission was also split. Rockefeller certainly knows, and so does Ford's man on that commission, David Berlin. Kissinger must have known the truth, so must have the officers in the Department of Defense. Then there are the secret team members planted in the various media organizations who know the truth. A later chapter will describe who they are and how they lead the media cover-up and disinformation mill. This living organism view of the power control group can best be constructed and proven by starting with the cover-up efforts and the control of the media, as opposed to examining the conspiracies to assassinate each leader. It is much easier to show how Gerald Ford, for example, led the cover-up in the JFK conspiracy than it is to determine who the members of the power control group were who planned and financed the assassination. It is difficult to show evidence of higher-level participation in the assassinations of Robert Kennedy, Dr. King, and in the attempted assassination of George Wallace. It is not difficult to prove that many high-level individuals conspired to cover up the conspiracies in each of the three cases. It is not difficult to prove that they helped frame at least one of the patsies. Much of the content of this book will show evidence of the cover-ups and discuss the actions that are still taking place that protect the power control group. Only summary information is included on the original conspiracies, except where there is a lack of published data.